All right, we are excited for our next speaker right here at the AI Plus Career Stage. Let's get ready for UC Irvine's Vice Chancellor for Information Technology and Data and Chief Digital Officer. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tom Andriola.
Thank you, MC. Ask me, does that man need a drink of water? He's been doing this all week.
It's naturally raspy.
All right. Hey, well, nice to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I'm going to do a little story time. I'm going to tell a story about a long time ago when dinosaurs ruled the earth and we used to hop on our bikes to go to this place called the library. Anybody remember those days? I figured we'd have a mixed audience, right? But I want to tell a story about a young man who sat down for an interview, trying to get a job in consulting, and they said, well, have you worked with the internet? And I said, well, I kind of know a little bit about it. Is it required for the job? Now, today that seems like a crazy thing to say, but there was a time when people thought the internet was just a fad. And then this thing came out. This is, for those of you who may not have been born at this point, this is called Netscape, the first internet browser. It gave the internet a face and something that we could attach ourselves to. And while this isn't very compelling, a few iterations later, it looked like something that maybe you might recognize today, the concepts of a portal. And the young man who ended up getting the job, even though he didn't know much about the internet, a year later was asked to be, imagine this, an internet consultant running around the country, talking to corporations saying, you need to pay attention to this new thing. And they said, young man, I told you I'd give you 5 minutes in my office. Why do I need to build one of these things? What did you call it? A website? Why would I want to put my paper catalog on this thing you call a website? Customers will always come into my store. Not a crazy idea, just something different that people didn't quite understand. But the early adopters, they started to take advantage of it. And there was this little company in Seattle that started selling books online. You may know it. It's called Amazon. And a year later, when I went back to see that customer, they said, of course, you could sell a book online. But what? You're going to sell groceries online? Instagram. Shoes online? Zappos. An automobile? Carvana, right? So what was originally impossible became not just possible, but for some of these things today, normal. So there are a few things I learned along the way, because my career has been at the intersection of how technology comes into our world and how it starts to reshape the way we think about things and do things. And so I learned some things along the way from my mentors, but also from my experiences that I'll share with all of you, especially for the younger people in the audience. One of my mentors said, Tom, the future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed. The people who are at this conference, they're on the earlier part, this left side of the picture. And my mentors taught me, opportunity in your career will always be on the left side of the curve. Some people will choose to be on the right. That's okay. The world comes for them eventually. I don't know of anyone not using Google today. But opportunity, when you think about your career, is always on the left side of the equation. Third, a very, very close colleague shared with me, Tom, I've always found that opportunity is in the and. A and B, the intersection of two things that change the way we do things. And it turns out he was right. For me, it's been technology and. It was technology and supply chain, and then technology and medical devices, and then technology and healthcare delivery, and then education. There was always opportunity at the intersection. But the other thing he shared in the conversation is, Tom, don't fall in love with the technology. Fall in love with the problem you're trying to solve. And a few speakers ago, they talked exactly about that. AI is just part of the and equation, but it's about the problem you're trying to solve with it. And so these have been the things that I've found along the way as we've gone through all of these technology movements that came after the internet. Mobile computing, cloud computing, software as a service, machine learning, now generative AI. they all kind of had that adoption curve, and I've positioned myself and had great opportunities to work in different parts of this country, different places in the world, because I decided purposely to be on the front side of that equation. And I talk about that we're living in this increasingly digital world. That's what my podcast is called. Life in an increasingly digital world. Whether it's, you see the computer vision has brought vision to places that we can't go. The ability to analyze it in real time, and no matter where you look, technology is shaping our world. The data that comes off of that technology is what is shaping our ability to take advantage of AI today. And data is now the artifact of the human experience. For those of you listening in the audience, I can guarantee you, you will remember less than 10% of what I'm saying by next week. But for the people who are watching the video maybe later, we've now captured 100% of it. Very, very interesting example came up just last week. Someone came to me and they said, Tom, I heard you were on a panel and you said there are going to be two types of employees in every organization in the future, a silicon-based employee and a carbon-based employee. I said, I'm not sure I said that. It's like, no, I heard you said it. I'm like, well, were you there? He goes, no, I saw it on the internet. I said, well, you can't believe everything you see on the internet. No, I saw it in a video. Maybe it was a deep fake. You were wearing the same jacket. I said, okay, I guess I said it, right? So what you say is forever, right? We live in an increasingly digital world, which gives us tremendous possibilities, but also brings maybe sometimes great accountability. So I work at a university. I get to do everything from education to research to healthcare. I'm not a professor. I just play one on television. But this moment came out. November 2022. And it had this eerie feeling in my stomach that I had seen this movie before. Except a couple things had changed. The technology had changed. The simplicity of the interface was very, very eerily similar. I had a lot less hair than I had back when the other time came. But I knew a couple of things. I knew as soon as I saw this, and I started playing with it, that it was going to reshape everything we were going to do and how we think about things. And the smartest thing I could think to do is I grabbed 2 graduate students and I hired them and I said, you are now my mentors. Because I know that my problem is going to be the way my brain has been wired over the last 25 years. It's going to be the biggest barrier to taking advantage of what's coming next. See, because now I was that executive sitting there going, and so why do I need to use this? It looks just like a Google search. Isn't that what you're saying? You're just summarizing a Google search, so I have to do 10 links? And they explained to me it's so much more than that. And then we watched how fast it was changing. So what really came about was, for myself, I recognized, from my own past and my own experiences, I needed to start by rewiring my brain, going back to basic fundamentals to understand how this worked and how it was going to make everything different. And then I started working on the tools. Rewire the brain before you start rewiring the skill set. But then I had this really other interesting responsibility as an organizational leader, which is it wasn't okay for me to just think about how to rewire my brain. I work in an organization of 25,000 people and 37,000 students. And we touch 200,000 patients per year. How was I going to help them get there, rewiring their brain? Because we knew the natural innovators, they were already playing with it. The experimenters, they were out playing with these tools even earlier than I was. But we had to give them a structure for that experimentation. And so we built what we call the cube, which would say, like, look, this is a fundamental technology, general purpose technology. It's going to reshape everything that we do at a university. It's going to reshape what it means to be a university. And so we built lanes. I live in Southern California now. We have super wide highways. We have lots of lanes. We have lots of lanes at the university. It's going to change the way we teach. It's going to change the way our students learn. It's going to change the basic nature of research. It's going to change the way we run this small city that we call a campus. The way we touch patients, the way we run the hospitals and clinics, the way we work with industry. Everything's on the table. We convinced the top of the organization that was going to be. And then we also knew that there were going to be other things we were going to look at. People were going to ask questions. Should we build it ourselves? Should we buy it from the marketplace? Can we afford to do it? Can we trust the vendors? All right? And then the other thing that you learn when you talk about general purpose technologies is it usually starts with people hacking their own productivity, I call it, making myself a little bit smarter. I tell people that I've probably knocked 8 hours out of my week through the use of these tools already, freeing me up to do more creative and innovative work. And then we start looking about how do we get the team using it? How do we get the department using it? And it's when you get the chance to build the new thing, the blank piece of paper, that's when you design it in. Electricity didn't get designed into buildings until after it had been around for 2 decades. Why? Because that's when I built my next factory, and I built it into the walls. But we missed some things in round one of building the cube. We missed our students, 37,000 students, who this was going to be the key to them building their careers, much in the same way that the internet was key, foundational to help me build mine. And so we built a whole scaffolding for how do we prepare our students to go out and join the workforce being AI literate, fluid, competent, and with a value system wrapped around it for responsibility, equitability, and ethically use of the tools. And then we built this platform, our own internal AI platform that leverages several different models that we call our AI platform, or ZotGPT is how we branded it. It's where AI innovation happens for the institution. And so people can leverage the large language models from the top vendors. They can build their own tools and creator. They plug in. And we just started designing different types of tools. Professors can build virtual TAs. Researchers can bring their data through an API and leverage the power of large language models on top of their own data. We plug into things from OpenAI, Google, and Microsoft, so we can take advantage of all the cloud environments as well as all the growing AI capabilities. We've given people choices. They don't have to be in the business of knowing what the best model is. The models are in there, and we know more and more it's going to be about orchestration. But what we really wanted was to build an innovation tool, because the innovators who are going to transform how this university works are the people who are doing the work every day. And so we built programs to bring them to the platform, give them the scaffolding of how to upskill themselves, and then how to take it out into their area that they serve students, or their area where they do their research, and say, just tell us what you want to do. The platform is there, the scaffolding is there, the concierge service, if you need to come in and say, well, I would do it this way versus this way, this type of reasoning model might work better for you. We built it all up. And so now we have a library of growing applications that we plug in. We now make this available to starting with other universities that, let's say, don't have the ability to kind of build their own platform. We were able to carve off some resources and build this. And what it's become, we've built prompt libraries, so people have starting points. The whole idea to get mass adoption of these tools is not just to give them access to tools and some training, but take down the friction associated. A lot of people say, I think it's too hard, I can't do that. But when they see a colleague do it, and the colleague says, look, this is what I did, this is all it took. There was a little bit of tweaking, it took me about an hour, but now I've saved 5. Then all of a sudden it doesn't seem so hard. But can I take it off the shelf and get the 80% starting point? Then all of a sudden it just doesn't seem so daunting to me. So these are the things that we've built, because what we're really talking about is massive innovation and transforming our organization, in this case, a university and a health system. And just a really quick story, and you can actually go out, this is a student worker working with our museum, right? So this is not just about computer science students or students who are in writing and literature. But over at the museum, one of our students said, hey, they gave me this task. I've got to catalog 4,000, so 4,000? I think it was 4,000 photos, paintings. Manually used to take 2 people 6 months. That's what they gave the student to do for the entire year. This student was a little smarter than the average bear. They grabbed the tool. They basically used computer vision through the tool, and they cataloged it, and they did it in 2 days. AI actually put some labels on things that actually humans usually would miss. Yeah, it was about a 90+% accuracy, but the idea was they used their brain and they solved the problem in a completely different way in a fraction of the time. We love the story so much, we wrote a story about it. And if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you could listen to the Note LM podcast about the story, just showing that even the story can be AI'd into a more conducive way of consuming content. So I don't know about you, but I like the podcast rather than reading the story. So it just shows you that everything is on the table, and it's a mentality. And this is the way we think about it. We branded the program. The program is called Work Reimagined. We have to think about solving problems with these new, very powerful tools and rethinking everything. Rewiring our brains, retooling, rethinking the work. What I find so interesting about it is everybody wants to talk about AI, but when we get into the room and start trying to solve the problem in a different way, it doesn't become about AI. It becomes around maybe we've got to lay out the process differently. Maybe we have to change responsibilities of who does what now that we can get AI to do 30% of the tasks associated with the work. We start redesigning processes. We start asking ourselves of, should these two units be one organization? How do we upskill the organization so that someone needs to watch and make sure that there's no model drift? Who's going to do that once we deploy the bots and the algorithms? So it is not always, and it usually is not a conversation about AI. It's a conversation about organizational transformation, and it's a journey. It's about getting 10% of the people to buy in, moving that to 20% through great storytelling, moving that to 40%. And once you reach critical mass, then you start talking about, it's just the way we do things around here. And if it can work at a university, it can work anywhere, because no place at a university can be as hard-headed as university professors. I can say that because I know a lot of them and I call them friends. So AI, some people want to change the world. If you're a younger person in this audience, you don't know the reference to this movie, 1999, Office Space, go watch it. If you're a young person, it was your father 30 years ago. But it's, some people want to change the world with AI. What I want to do is I want to walk in, my wife says to me, hey, how was work today? And I want to, that great line from that movie, my favorite line, which is, hey, I did absolutely nothing today, and it was everything that I caught it to be. So hopefully a little bit of storytelling. We had a little bit of fun. You enjoyed the quips. And if you want to ask some questions, we got a couple of minutes, or just grab me afterwards. Thank you.